The 2025 season is approaching us faster and faster as the days and seconds and minutes and hours go by, friends. But with that comes the pressure buildup each and every day we get closer, okay? So, in this video, I want to talk about what teams are under the most pressure, in my opinion, going into the 2025 college football season. All right? So we're just going to go ahead. We're going to dive right in. You know, I'm going to lay a little bit of criteria. The criteria that I'm essentially gathering to consider a team to be under pressure. Again, this is opinionated, but my criteria for my opinion that I'm forming here is coaching. So is the coach on the hot seat? Has the coaching not been good? Is that why the team is performing at the level that they're performing, etc., etc.? Secondly, would just be countrywide expectations. You know, what's the expectation all the way around from the fan base, from the media? Is there a lot of talks about playoffs or championship expectations, things along those lines? So those are really the two big criteria that I'm kind of basing this off of. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead, we're going to kick this right off with Madison, Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin's under a lot of pressure this year, man. Luke Fickell has struggled mightily with the Badgers. The hire, when it initially happened, I think everybody, including myself, was pretty excited. We all saw the success that Luke Fickell had at Cincinnati. We thought, hey, moving into the Big Ten, it's going to be hard to recruit, but better recruiting grounds. You know, it's easier than Cincinnati. Of course, hard in the scheme of, or I guess just the fact that you're in the Big Ten, you know, having to recruit against the Penn States and the Ohio States and the Michigans. And then you add in Oregon and you add in USC and other schools. But nonetheless, it hasn't been pretty, okay? It has not been pretty at all. Wisconsin's win total this year is 5.5. So after a 5-7 year last year, I mean, Vegas is essentially telling you we don't think this team is really going to be that much better. This line scares me, guys. It really scares me. And here's the reason why. Wisconsin has the 12th toughest schedule in college football. So you factor in the pressure that Luke Fickell is under. If he does not get a bowl game this year, I'm not going to be the one to say he won't be there, but I think the pressure is getting to a point where it's about to boil over. I think the fans in Madison are starting to get upset. They want to see this team get better. They're not getting better. That's the problem. They've been stagnant now under Luke Fickell. So this year, to make matters worse, they have the 12th toughest schedule in college football. They go to Bama early in the season. You talk about brutal. That's brutal. They play Ohio State this year. They get them at home. Okay, so it'll be a great environment in Camp Randall, but still not an easy game. They go to Oregon. They go to Michigan. So think just to hear those road games alone. At Bama, at Oregon, at Michigan. That's 3 extremely good football teams that are not easy wins. Maybe you could argue they could sneak a win against Michigan because of the sheer fact that we really don't know what we're going to see with Michigan this year. But all in all, man, the pressure is on Luke Fickell. The pressure's on the Badgers. They got a tough schedule. They are going to be an interesting team to watch. How do they weather this storm? Can they crack over that 5.5 win line? Next up, let's go to Florida State, okay? We just did the preview for the Florida State-Alabama game. I had a lot of good things to say about Florida State. I also touched on the disaster of last year, so I'm not going to beat that too much. That drum has been beaten a lot. We all know what happened. It was not a good season for Mike Norvell and Florida State. However, they won 2 games last year, right? The win total this year is 7.5. That's the line, okay? So clearly Vegas believes in you. Clearly Vegas thinks, hey, last year was a fluke. 7.5 is where they should be at, somewhere in that range, right? I think a plus or minus of maybe 2. They could win 9 games. They could win 5 games. I think the pressure is on because if Norvell does not at least win 6 or 7 minimum, I don't know if he's going to be there next year. The fans in Tallahassee deserve a lot better than 2. That's a program that, quite honestly, should never win 2 games. Ever. Like, that is inexcusable. But things happen, right? It's in the past. I agree with sticking with Norvell. I like the moves that he's made. I think it's no better way to start the year than playing Bama, right? 24th strength of schedule, all right? So that's Bama in week 1, but they get them at home. So a lot of emotions, good chance. They have Miami at home, which will be a big game. And then they play Clemson and Florida later in the year on the road. All right, so again, 24th strength of schedule. Not impossible, but it's a lot of pressure. And I think that week 1 game is going to be the big defining point in what's the season look like for Florida State. If they come out and get steamrolled by Bama, I don't know how they're going to respond to that as a team, as a coaching staff. If they come out and they play a competitive football game, either they sneak a win or at least keep it close, I think they can really build off that. So, with that being said, let's now move to Happy Valley, okay? We're moving to State College, Pennsylvania, the Penn State Nittany Lions. So I'm sure some of you are thinking, how would Penn State be under an immense amount of pressure? Here's the reasons why. Let's just make it concise. James Franklin supposedly can't win the big games. I say supposedly just to try to play devil's advocate and defend him, but it's partially true. It is. Now, some people are going to argue, well, he won 2 playoff games. Listen, the 2 playoff games were SMU and Boise State. I'm just going to let that resonate. I'm not hating on SMU. I'm not hating on Boise State. But are those truly big games? In terms of the setting, absolutely. They're playoff games. They're huge. But in terms of big games against true blue blood programs, true top 5 programs, he cannot win them. That has been the downfall of James Franklin, at least for the last, let's just say, 5 years. Okay, they had the one Big Ten title with Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley not too long ago. It's been a while now, but at least in recent memory. But there is a lot of pressure on Penn State this year. When you make it to the college football playoff semifinal and the talk around town is still that you can't win the big games, and then you factor in Drew Aller is back, Katron Allen is back, Nick Singleton is back. How many of these guys are staying to right those wrongs? You got to make it happen. So the 27th strength of schedule, not that bad. It could be much worse for Penn State. That's a manageable schedule. They have a couple of cupcake games to start the year, then they get Oregon at home in the whiteout. All right, what better way to play a big team, right, than having them at home in a whiteout environment? We know how that works for Penn State, man. It does wonders. It's an unbelievable atmosphere. It's a great environment. That's going to be one of the best games of the year this year, at least on paper. Well, obviously, we'll see what happens when the game is played. Outside of that, Penn State plays Ohio State on the road this year. That'll be a tough one. But the rest of the schedule is completely manageable. Like 10-2 should be the floor in the regular season for Penn State. The floor. All right? So I think the pressure is on this team, though, because the way they set themselves up after the success they had last year, if this team doesn't find a way into the playoff and then deep into the playoff after that, then I think there's going to be some discussion and some frustration yet again. You can't make everyone happy. I'm not saying Penn State has to win a national championship to ever find success, but I do think with the amount of returning production they have and the reputation that's being built on James Franklin, there is a lot of pressure on this team to perform this year. Next up, let's move to LSU, okay? Some of you may be scratching your head, well, how is there a lot of pressure on LSU? I'll make it short, I'll make it sweet. Brian Kelly, he's had success, okay? But there has been some word about frustration with Brian Kelly. Okay, last year was 9-4 year. It wasn't the best. With the amount of talent and just recruiting ability that LSU as a program has, the Brian Kelly tenure hasn't been great. There's been some really big letdown games. There's yet to be a playoff appearance. They have not rolled the dice in the SEC quite yet, other than when they played Georgia in his first season there. Okay, so I'll give him that, but it wasn't a close game by any means. Georgia really took that one and ran with it. Since that, it's felt like LSU has kind of moved backwards. Now they have the number 1 portal class. What's this year look like? I guess I just feel like the media and the hype around LSU is really what's putting them in this position, not so much the Brian Kelly talk. I think that's one of the things to add into it. But there have been people talking about LSU winning the SEC. There's been talk about them being a guaranteed playoff team. There's been talks about them rolling the dice for a national championship. And this team went 9-4 last year. And their over-under win total is 8.5 this year. So Vegas is almost thinking they're going to be less, nearly. Okay? They do have the 11th toughest schedule in college football, so that does not help their case either. They play Clemson on the road week 1. We know how brutal week 1s have been for LSU. That one's a head-scratcher. You know, that's a scary way to start the year. Last year, they played USC week 1, and they lost. Okay, they play Florida at home. They play Bama on the road. Again, outside of those 3 games, they still have some tough games. It's the SEC. It's the 11th toughest schedule in college football. They're still going to have their hands full. but they should be able to succeed. And that's where I think the pressure is on this team. 9-4 for the expectation that's starting to be set by the media and all around the country for LSU, to me, is a good year, but I don't think it's where people want them to be or expect them to be, especially LSU fans. I'm sure they would probably agree with me. Alrighty, let's move on to our last two teams. Florida Gators. Over-under win total of 6.5 this year. The Gators won 7 games last year. 4 weeks into the year, Billy Napier pretty much had his bags packed and was nearly out the door, at least in the minds of everybody but him. And I guess Scott Strickland, the athletic director in Gainesville, as well. But I thought for sure he was gone. I thought it was signed, sealed, and delivered. The phone calls are being made around the country. This thing is done. It was not done. Billy Napier finished the year on one of the hottest streaks outside of maybe the Baylor Bears. Florida finished the year hot. They beat LSU. They beat a top 10 Ole Miss team, killed their playoff hopes. Now, granted, both of those were in the swamp. That makes a huge difference. Incredible environment down there. Florida plays extremely well at home. However, they set themselves up with so much momentum to finish the year. DJ Lagway starting to shine. Recruiting picked up towards the tail end of the year. The portal class was a good job, picking up J. Michael Sturdivant out of the portal and the wideouts. You got Dallas Wilson coming in as a talented recruit at wideout this year. Trey Wilson is back healthy this year. Jaden Baugh is back. DJ Lagway gets the start. I could go on forever, guys. The expectation for Florida is starting to surpass what I think it should be at. And I think that's where the pressure comes in, because if Florida only wins 6 games this year, they finish under the 6.5, even 7, I feel as though a lot of people are going to claim that's a letdown. Don't forget, though, Florida has the number 1 toughest strength of schedule in the entire country. They play a brutal schedule. Miami on the road early. LSU on the road early. Texas at home early in the season. They then play Georgia in a neutral site game. They play Florida State to finish the year. Do we know what Florida State's going to be yet? No. That could be a game that in this video we look back on and laugh at, but still, brutal schedule for a team that's starting to gain a lot of traction around this could be a sleeper playoff year, a sleeper SEC title contending year. A lot's going to have to go right for the Gators. They are going to have to win some tough football games early in the season too. Okay, let's move to our last team here, and we will wrap this thing up with the University of Southern California. When Lincoln Riley took this job, I thought it was a surefire, great hire. I'm not going to go as far to say it's not, but it really has not panned out to the level at which Lincoln Riley probably wanted it to, and I can guarantee you what USC, that program and those fans wanted it to be. Recruiting has struggled. They've gotten great recruits, but have not been able to keep or retain those great recruits. They've come out and started seasons strong and then fallen off a cliff. There's just been too much head scratching and just uncertainty with USC, and you can never pinpoint where they're at. It feels like one week they take a step forward for the next week to take a step backwards. I thought DeAnton Lynn's defense was going to be better last year. They were better than the year prior, than the 2023 season, and they started the year great. I thought they played an incredible game against LSU, all things considered. They then quickly got worse as the season progressed. Jaden Mayava is back. He obviously took Miller Moss's job. He had some flashes of success, so I'm excited to see what Jaden Mayava and this USC team can do, but I think the pressure is starting to build extremely high on Lincoln Riley's shoulder more than the team's shoulders. The over-under win total for USC is only 7.5. They have the 28th toughest schedule in college football, so not laughable, not a very manageable or easy schedule by any means. They play Illinois on the road. That's early in the year. I'm sure usually our brains are conditioned when we hear you're playing Illinois, no matter where it's at, you're like, how is that a tough game? Remember, Illinois was a very good football team last year that's returning, I want to say, in the 70 percentile of its production from last year. A lot of returners, Luke Altmaier being one of them. Illinois is going to be a good team. That's a tough game to play on the road early in the season. They then play Michigan at home this year. Again, not a cupcake game. Then they play Notre Dame on the road. They play Oregon on the road. Whew, man. When you have that much pressure building and you have to play those two teams on the road, a hot Illinois team on the road, you host Michigan, that can quickly start to build up. So with that being said, friends, those are the teams I feel like are under the most pressure going into the 2025 college football season. Of course, there's absolutely more teams that are under a good amount of pressure. If you disagree, obviously, I completely understand. To me, though, these are teams that I think, whether it be coaching or the media, are going to need to perform. And that's kind of where we stand. So with that being said, obviously we'll wait and see, but I appreciate you guys watching. Do me a favor, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you like the content on this channel, drop a like, comment, let me know what you think. Feedback, criticism, if you disagree, if you agree, any and all is much appreciated. Thank you guys, and I will see you next time.